guess it was past that. Good afternoon, lunchtime. I never get that right. We're glad to be here. And we did a similar presentation to the Entrepreneurs Group a year ago. But I'm Kevin Simister, and I'm partnered with Hawkins Clower the Simister. This is my friend and partner, Josh Rowley, and he's also a partner with our firm. We really think the world of UVU because we think that's really the future of our valley here for schooling. And we get some great people from UVU that work with our firm too, so it's a good school, and we think that your time here is very well spent. So I want to get a little demographics from you before we get started. So what year in school? How many seniors do we have? Almost all seniors. Okay, so juniors then? How many are working towards an undergrad or a postgrad degree? Any master's students?
And what degree?
Oh, no, I'm not working on it currently. I'm working on getting there.
You're going to get, how many of you are planning on postgrad? Okay, good, about a third. That's excellent. How many are married? Good. Okay, so good. We have some dating advice for the rest of you. All right. First of all, does everybody know what I mean when I say the hall of scrutiny? Think about it for a minute. The flags. Okay. So okay, why is it the hall of scrutiny?
Because it's like a runway. People watch you as you walk past. Well, fun fact, one time people were holding up numbers.
I was going to say, you feel like they're holding up numbers behind you as you walk past. They have no equivalent at BYU for that. So I'm serious, you guys are unique on that. But here's some dating advice. And you should, kids are pretty honest. Like here's Alan, age 10. How do you decide who to marry? You got to find someone who likes the same stuff. Like, if you like sports, she should like it that you like sports. And she should keep the chips and dip coming.
Okay. That's 10 years old. It was a boy. Can you tell? Surprise. Okay, here's one for the girls. Kristen, age 7. When is it okay to kiss someone? When they're rich.
There you go.
When they're rich.
Okay, and then here's Mark, age 10. This is a very honest answer. On the first date, they tell each other lies, and that usually gets them interested enough to go for the second date. So anyway, there you go. Okay, how many of you have already started your own business? Great, we've got about a dozen entrepreneurs in here. How many of you know what I mean when I say boom?
Say what?
Bones. Girls, I expect all the hands go up here.
The clothing store?
Bones, okay. How many know that? In the mall? Okay, a couple of guys know, I've seen it walking past. Okay, Vivian Bohm. She's a great gal, great friend of mine. But Vivian is one of those few women entrepreneurs, and we've got a few in here, so I'm glad to see that we've got some women in here. But the first store for Vivian was here in the University Mall. How many stores do you think she has today? Take a guess.
5 or 6?
Well, it's kind of between those two numbers, 5 or 6. She has 22 stores and started here in the mall. So women are great entrepreneurs. Find something, really work on, and they can really make it go. So make sure that you don't discount those women. They have some great ideas.
Well,
Anyway.
maybe before we kind of get started here, I just want to share something real quick that will kind of introduce you to what we're talking about here today.
By the way, this isn't our firm uniform. This just kind of happened.
Which is funny
took
because
off my
in
jacket.
my closet last night, I sent a text to Kevin. I said, "Are we wearing jackets or what?" And then we ended up wearing the same blue shirt, which
Dark
doesn't coordinate,
suits,
but
blue coats.
we're going to talk about thinking blue today.
So.
Maybe it's appropriate. I just wanted to share something real quick. I was with a client last week. One of the things that we do as a firm is we try to be with our clients off the meter in their office whenever we can, listening to them, learning about their business. And this individual's local business, and I won't share you his name, but he's working on getting towards a liquidating event in his business. And I was asking him about that, and he said, my next step is to hire a CEO. And I said, gosh, you're a pretty good CEO. Why are you hiring a CEO? And what do you think he said? Why, when you're about to liquidate your business, would you hire a CEO? as preparation for that.
So you don't have to stick around?
That's it. He said, I'm going to go and do something else. And I don't want to get locked here as part of the acquisition. And so what we're going to talk about today really revolves around that, around making a business that is strong, that will stand on its own 2 feet, specifically to last for the long haul. So,
Okay, so that's what's known as a serial entrepreneur, and we like those guys. Anyway.
so Kevin, let me ask you a question. Speaking of youth and these kids, going way back to your youth,
Way back?
I'm not sure if there were public schools back then. Did you play sports by chance?
Yes, they were public schools, and I did. I played football, track.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember the leather pads, the brown helmets. Do you think that you could run 100 yards?
I'm sure I could.
Okay. Could you do it without puking?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have to admit, the last time I raced one of my sons, I pulled a hamstring and couldn't walk for a week. So.
Okay. So talk to me about running a marathon. Do you think, what would it take for you to run a marathon?
No, I've never even attempted to run a marathon. The closest I've come to a marathon is watching my wife run a marathon. So.
Which I'm sure was exhausting. Even so, 2 hours in a lawn chair, as uncomfortable in the sun as that might have been.
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't even wait the whole 2 hours. I stayed in the hotel room and then came for the last hour and watched him go across the finish line. So anyway, that's as far as it went.
So what we want to talk about today, there is a difference between running a 100-yard dash and a marathon.
Right. They actually took 8 or 9 months to prepare for this. There were a group of 4 of them. They formed a team. They worked together, and they spent nine months preparing for this. And they all made it, by the way. They all finished the marathon.
So that's what we want to talk about today, and set your minds towards that angle of creating a business that will be sustained for the long run.
Okay, now who's better to tell you about that than some seasoned CPAs? Now our firm, which is based here in Orem, has been around 60 years. We have over 5,000 clients. Well, these are 5,000 businesses that we review every year. We look at their financials, we review with them, we meet with them periodically, and we do this for as long as they will let us be their client. We're going on second and third generations for some of our clients. We have clients that have been with us for 60 years from the very beginning, so they stay with us. And so what we're telling you is that you can trust our perspective because we have seen everything from the whole soup to nuts deal.
And you
can trust it.
don't want to be the guy that pukes at the end of 100 yards or
Pulls a hamstring, yeah, right, I know, okay. Well, we love working with entrepreneurs because, Josh, where else could you work with people who only have to work half a day?
Half a day. I'm not sure that these guys are going into business because they're expecting on working just a half. Oh wait, 12 hours. 12 hours a day. Okay, I'm with you. Half a day. That's true. Definitely being in business is going to take some hard work.
12 hours is not that bad if you do that. Well,
It's a
anyway.
short day.
So, in fact, that's one of the myths. That's one of the myths about being an entrepreneur, that you don't really have to work. So let's talk about these myths.
So I love to hear the word myths because it makes me think of my favorite show. Has anyone watched it recently? Because it's been a while since I've caught it. Mythbusters. It's not on Discovery Channel anymore. It's moved. So for a moment, we invite you to think of us as bring out the beards, Jamie Heidemann, and who's the other guy? Adam Savage, Mythbusters. So don't try this at home. No, wait a second. We want you to try at home or in your business ventures the things that we talk about today, because the point of what that's kind of the point of what we're doing here.
Okay, so let's talk about that very first myth. You go into business for yourself so you don't have to work.
Okay.
Manage yourself to success.
Certainly this has some appeal. Nice thing to think about, right? If I can build a business that I can manage it and I can have the four-wheelers in my garage and be doing what I want to do. But let's just talk about this for a second. The common belief here is that I'm going to go into business for myself so that I can do what I want to do when I want to do it. I can hire people to do the heavy lifting for me, and I will just manage my way to success.
But doing nothing's hard work because you never quite know when you're done.
Right. I mean, the problem here is, who cares about the long haul? All I need is a liquidating event like the one I talked about, a little bit early. I just am going for that harvest, and then I'm going to be good. But there's a little bit of a misnomer about that. I think.
Right. Success is hard work, but unfortunately, all we hear about are the big events. And why is it that all we hear about is what the really big events are, and we get this wrong impression? It's really very simple. It's a 24-hour news cycle. The internet has this voracious appetite for stories, and so hitting it big is interesting. $100 million is interesting. Winning the lottery is interesting. So you hear all about these things all the time, and this impression is created that they are very, very common, when in fact they're not. They're really extremely unusual. They're extraordinary. Entrepreneurs actually are quite extraordinary. They're a rare group. And you don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of near misses or any of the disasters that happen. So they're just not interesting. That's all there is to it. Now, did you know, Josh, that the average millionaire in the United States took 17.3 years to reach their first million, and they worked 60 hours a week to do it?
So I really love that statistic, and I don't know where we got it, but because I think it underscores what we're talking about here. What I know about this group, though, is entrepreneurs, you guys are going to be a hardworking bunch. But you need to be, because you've got a long hill to climb ahead of you. So we want to look at this example right here. Who's seen these guys in concert? Anybody? Blue Man Group? Not kind of.
Not even on
know what they're
TV? Some of you
about.
haven't seen them on TV or anything?
Some of you seen them perform. You know what this group is about, right? These guys paint their faces blue.
How do you
they get on stage.
even describe this act? How do you even describe it? It's bizarre, but it's really, really entertaining.
So let me just kind of tell you a little bit about these guys that might seem to some to be an overnight success. It took them 10 years to get to that point of recognition. And when they first started, 3 guys in New York City, they started doing 6 shows a week. For 3 years they did it, and they performed 1,200 consecutive performances. They never missed a performance in 1,200 performances. They weren't looking for an easy ride.
No, they weren't. And another big success that we hear about all the time is Facebook. I mean, they just had their IPO a year or so ago, billions of dollars. And Facebook is absolutely incredible. I can't even get my mind around the numbers that these guys are working with. But everyone forgets that Facebook began in 2004, and it wasn't until 5 years later that they even had positive cash flow. They went 5 years in the red. That is a long time. So the thing you have to get out of your head is that there are millions and millions of overnight successes, that you don't have to work your way through these things. You have to put in a lot of time. So what do you think about this myth, Josh?
Can you manage your ways to success? Maybe once you're successful, you can manage it, but to get there, I say bust it.
No, it's not going to happen. Let's talk about myth number 2. And here's the myth. You give me enough money and it will solve all my problems. I'm going to succeed if you give me enough money.
So, plenty of examples. I mean, when we say that, it kind of bounces wrong with you, right? You know there's a problem about that. But I will tell you that it's easy for entrepreneurs to get caught in this. Let's look at a couple examples. Solyndra is back in the news. Originally, we thought that they borrowed $500 million. It came out last spring that they borrowed $1 billion. That's a lot of rope to tie your knots. They spent it. They went bankrupt. Kind of a debacle. Copious amounts of money apparently doesn't solve certain problems. So your funding is critical, but there's something else here in the mix that we've got to put our finger on.
Let me tell you about one local company that we worked with. This is a company that the owner started, and he worked for 10 years and sold the company for $20 million after 10 years. Everybody like that story? Okay. Did I mention that during that 10 years he invested $10 million of his own money to get it going. You still like the story? How about after he put in 10, he sold it for 20?
But his investors and his
Plus,
partners.
he raised another 40 million in invested capital. $50 million in that company, sold it for 20. You like the story at all now? No. And there were some big names that lost money in that. So this whole story about you give me enough money and I will succeed,
It's busted.
busted. Doesn't work.
It's important to have good capitalization, but there's some other things.
And here's the reason, myth number 3. There's this idea that business planning really isn't necessary. Okay, I just got to be nimble, got to react quickly, got to be quick on my feet. That's all I got to do, right?
So I think if you were to go into businesses, and maybe some of you have employers, and you could ask them, do we have a business plan? Is there a strategy? I think you'd find it's in their head. It's expensive. It's time-consuming to write this down and to go through the process of it. There's a move in the entrepreneurial community to get your business out to the street fast and to test it there. And that's great.
Build it on the
solves a
street.
lot of problems. Taking it to market fast is a really great thing, as long as we're not stabbing in the dark.
Like
So we
crowdfunding.
still have to have a plan.
How many of you Kickstarter? Has anybody funded anything on Kickstarter? You put your own money into it?
It
Couple
works.
have?
I had a prospect come in this week. They got $400,000 on Kickstarter. They were asking for 50, and they're riding really high. But they're at a little bit of a risk of kind of falling into one of these traps. Sometimes I wonder if they don't talk much about their plan and their strategy because they're feeling like they've got enough rope to work with. So the best businesses that I know, they've got a plan. The owners and the managers, they know where they want to be. This is going to help you focus in the daily grind and the distractions that spread your resources thin. I know a guy, okay, he's a client. He does silk screening, he fixes clocks, and he builds custom motorcycles.
Time out.
And he thinks that they're all going to make him rich.
Once more time, what?
So
Fixes clocks?
So he silk screens, he fixes clocks,
Silk
and builds
screen-
custom motorcycles.
And he thinks they're all going to hit big?
Would you be surprised, and this is true, if I told you his QuickBooks password is crapshoot?
This guy,
That's true.
this guy, don't be this guy.
I asked
He
him for
doesn't-
permission. I said, can I use this in a presentation?
Don't,
So, yeah.
don't be this guy. This is not a plan. This is hoping that lightning is going to strike and that something's going to work. This is not going to work. So that myth, that one is
Busted.
totally busted. You got to be focused. That's really important.
So take a look at this graphic and just kind of go here with me for a minute. Building a business is really like sailing in stormy waters. When you start a new business, it's in a certain way perilous. We all know that most startups fail. When that ship wrecks, not only can it destroy your financial future, but maybe your family or friends that invested, and hopefully not, but maybe your reputation. And you don't have the capacity to go on and be a serial entrepreneur.
And that's
it's
something
never pretty.
that most people don't even think about is for most entrepreneurs, they raise money with the people closest to them. They get money from their friends, they get money from their family, grandma. That's where most of the money comes from. I had a really sad story. A fellow came to my office just this last summer, and he said that he had helped his son-in-law start a garage, an auto repair garage. And to start the business, they had borrowed $100,000 from the bank, and he had guaranteed the loan for his son-in-law. And so I said, well, obviously there was a problem, so what's happened? He said, well, they've gone out of business and the bank is foreclosing on everything, so they're coming after me for the loan. And I said, well, what assets do you have? Well, the guy had about $200,000 equity in his home, and he had a $100,000 time certificate. The guy's 65, that's all he had. So he risked everything, really, his retirement, he risked for his son-in-law. So this is what happens when these things go bad sometimes. So we know what not to do. Let's talk about what it's going to take. We get real here, and we talk about what we really have to do to build a solid
Hold on.
foundation so that we can
Hold
succeed.
on, that
so that-
sounds like an accountant talking. I mean, Kevin, these people, these entrepreneurs, they're full of
He's
hope.
still kind of a young dreamer, you have to understand.
I had a dream once. I had a dream. Are you saying we can't chase rainbows?
Okay, all right. You can have a dream, but you can only have one dream, and you have to check with your accountant first.
I
On
can't
this.
remember the rain. What are those things called? Care Bears.
Care Bears.
Sorry,
Okay,
Care Bears.
So, okay, so.
Okay.
You know what not to do. So let's talk about what you really must do. Okay?
Okay. So must do number one, Mr. Rainbow Hater. It's okay to be passionate. It's okay to have a dream. It's okay to be visionary. In fact, you have to be, because no one else is going to be it if it's not you. So you have to have that fire in your belly. This is your first job as an entrepreneur. It's your last job as an entrepreneur, and no one else is going to do it for you.
And like we talked about a minute ago, don't start a silk screening, bike repair, clock repair business. Focus. Do something, do it really good. Stay focused.
Your resources are limited, and so that focus is really critical. And if you're not planning how to use and when and where to use your resources. So the old adage is true. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It doesn't mean that your plans aren't changing. It doesn't mean that you're not pivoting. It doesn't mean that you're not quick to the street. But you just have to make sure that you have a vision for where you're headed next. And we'll talk a little bit about advice as
Okay,
well.
by the way, we really didn't mention up front that we love questions, and you're welcome to stick your hand up anytime. We'll stop and talk about the question. Maybe you have an example, maybe some of these that you've seen before. I'll start with you, and then you.
A lot of companies that start off with one particular product or industry seem to, without fail, move to another without, I don't know if this is just based off of what I view, but they move to another product or industry almost out of necessity rather than desire, such as Blue Nile was one of the first online diamond distributor companies, and it quickly moved to the sale of jewelry, when originally all they wanted to do was sell gemstones and do so at a wholesale price online because they don't have a brick and mortar store, thus being able to save all that money. Why then do companies, and large companies, often move into markets that they weren't set up to do in the first place? As you said, do good planning and stay focused. You know, the first two out of your points that you just made, it seems like they're all of a sudden not being focused, yet it's almost too enticing to let someone else sell, you know, the setting for your diamond.
Are all of you familiar with, there are two different answers to that. First of all, they start off with a bad premise. It doesn't work. And so they are forced to make the change. But occasionally, they start off with something and they find something better because of how they started. How many of you have heard of NetWare? NetWare, the original networking software for PCs, right? Novell. Everyone knows of Novell, NetWare. Do you know how that company started? Now I know because 3 of the 4 founders are my clients, so I can tell you how that company actually started. At the time it came out, all computers were mini computers. I mean, they filled a whole closet. They weren't filling the whole room like they did back in the IBM days, but they were huge. They were big computers. The first computer we bought, the hard drive was that big around, and it would hold 100 megs. And we bought 2 of them so we could hold 200 megs. They were huge. So you had all of these dumb terminals hooked up. These guys, straight out of BYU, developed a software that allowed terminals to talk to each other and send messages back and forth. And then they heard about PCs coming along, and they thought, our software is going to work on that too. But these PCs can't talk. So let's write a little program that'll let these PCs talk to each other, and then we can show them our great texting software between terminals. That's how it got going. And it didn't take them that long to realize, uh-oh, forget the communication software. It's the connection software that really works. And they saw that. They had good leadership, and they had a structure built that they could switch over and do it. So sometimes it's lucky. It's just good fortune.
Can I say something about that? I think that's such a great question because that's the paradigm that is in a lot of the back of your mind. Like, why bother making a plan if I'm going to end up over here? Getting profitable is very often a process of exploration. You are exploring, and the reason that you guys, whoever doesn't have a business right now, it's not because you don't want to, it's not because you're not in a position, it's because you just haven't found the opportunity. So to think about exploring, you have to get to the margin of something, of what you know, of what you can do, and then you poke around a little bit, looking for the opportunity, looking for the information, looking for the discovery. So I think the point is you get out there, right? You get engaged with some plan, you get there, and when you're there, and we see it all the time, right? The business takes these major kind of pivots, and I think and I see it a lot too, and I think it's because great business happens through exploration. It's part of why you guys love it. You're a curious kind of group, and when you get to the margin of the market and what it provides, you're in a great position to see what the needs are and hear from customers what they want, and then you just slide right in. It's not that big of a move, but it doesn't mean that you're not planning. You plan to get in a position, and then you move strategically in everything you do.
Part of the problem too is the stories we hear on the news. Again, you're hearing all about the exceptions, and you hear about amazingly unusual situations, such as Facebook, that got so big, so fast. It was just the right thing at the right time. And how many Facebooks are there? Well, kind of, sort of, some other things coming on, but it's so rare. You have to keep in mind how unusual this really is. People forget that. Okay, so must do. You got to have core values. You've got to know who you are and where you want to go. Now, if you don't have a core of integrity and principles and unselfishness, you just are starting handicapped. You have got to be sure that those things are part of who you really are. You know, in our office, we say it's never just business; it's always personal.
You know, one of the things that we mean about that when we say business is personal, our clients are our friends. We legitimately care about their success, their well-being, and that when we say we're going to do something, we do it. Like you would in a relationship you want to preserve and maintain as a friendship.
Okay, now our core values are so important. We have 6 core values: integrity, excellence, and knowledge. Those are the professional core values. And then for balance, we have service, balance, and appreciation. And those are part of who we are. They're so important, we have them etched in stone. And we want to share some of those with you now. I'm going to ask those of you in the front to take one of these bags, pass them out so that everybody has one in the room. We want to make sure that you all have one of our core values. If you don't get the core value that you wanted, like I said, we have 6, then come down after. We've got a whole bunch of extras. Just pass them out, please, and make sure everybody has one. And you can come down and sort through and pick one that you really like. You can get all 6 if you want.
Pick one you like. We give these out to our friends, our clients, as a way to connect with them on kind of a mutual.
Yeah, just hand them out
value.
now so everybody has one, and then you're welcome to come down after and pick through and get one that you really want. So just pass them on out.
You must really trust us. You won't do a bad job.
We're not handing out rotten fruit here.
Okay, so
Stones aren't such a great idea.
if one of you notices that you're... Anybody else need one?
I need one.
Who else needs? We got lots here, and there are still lots in the bag. So if you need some, come down. Now, you pass them out. You got them all?
Did everyone get one?
Pick one.
Looks like they're out.
And then there are plenty here. If you notice that the neighbor next to you has a core value that you think doesn't apply to them, you guys can debate that after. We're going to let you figure that out on your own. Anyway, interesting. We had a leadership coach come to our firm this last summer to do some coaching for our office, and he talked about core values. And he says, I've been doing this for 25 plus years. And I can tell you that every single company I have ever gone to has integrity as a core value. So that's not very unusual, but then he paid us a compliment. He says, this is the first time in my career that I've seen a firm that has appreciation as a core value. And we think that's really important. But you need to show appreciation all the way around. So anyway, again, come after. You can fish through and get one that you really like. You can take all 6. It doesn't matter to us at all. So I'm going to tell you about 20 years ago, I had a client, contractor, who used modular homes. You know, they come off of a factory line and they put them together. They're not mobile homes. They're actual stick-built homes, but they are built in a factory setting. He happened to get the last modular home off the line before the building company went bankrupt. He tried for 2 years to get an invoice so he could pay for that home, because the homeowner had already paid him. He had all the money, but he wasn't able to pay for the actual home itself because it came on a couple of pieces and they put it together on the foundation. He finally got a hold of the bankruptcy trustee and said, what am I going to do? And the trustee said, oh, forget about it. Just never mind. But he couldn't let that go. He still sent them a check in for $50,000 because it was the right thing to do. Now this guy has nothing. He's got an old pickup truck and a few bucks in the bank. Doesn't have anything else. But he has integrity. I would trust him with anything because he's proven it.
So let me put another one on the table for you. Recently, I had a client who was a partner in an establishment that probably half of you have been to here in Utah County, and closed. But years ago, he got out, and his agreement with his partner is, "Hey, I'm out of this. It doesn't fit me anymore. Things are going pretty well for you, so you take the business. That means all the liabilities and everything." So he was out, so he thought. His name was on a bank account that he didn't remove. That's all. And because of that, it allowed a bank to get back to him. And when they foreclosed on a building and there wasn't enough money, they came after the partnership for $80,000. He was the guy with money. And the remarkable thing is not that he paid the $80,000, but he and his wife sat across from my desk and they said, "We're paying it and we're going to be friends with this guy. We're not going to hold it over him. It's only money. This is people and this is relationships." And that to me is what's remarkable, is that they put people over money.
Well, your relationship to your coworkers, to your customers, to everyone you deal with shows. And your employees are going to take their instruction from the top. If you show those kind of attitudes and those core values, then your whole organization is going to show those core values.
So
It's really important.
So don't get us wrong, you got to make a profit. We want you to be financially successful, but you got to care about your people along the way. You got to act in ways that you believe and the people around you can believe in as
How
well.
about, but competition comes in.
Competition is a good thing, and you need it. You need it to push you along. You need it to excel. Just remember, cannibals are competitive too. It's just not such a good thing.
Bad things. Let's talk about Mustang's you. Okay, it's really important to understand that you're not the smartest guy in the room all the time. Okay, the School of Hard Knocks is populated by people who do everything the hard way, either because they think that they know how to do it all, or they refuse to pay for good advice. So, what you should do is get a good board of advisors, and that means people in various disciplines. Talk to them about your problems, listen to what they have to say, and follow their advice.
But most of the time. Follow their advice most of the time. If you're the leader, if you're the one in charge, you've got to be willing to stick your neck out and to be gutsy and to be accountable and to take responsibility for those things. But the best leaders will listen well, take good advice, and then if they have to do something gutsy, they'll do it.
Okay, so let's go back to, we talked about Blue Band Group just a little bit ago. It looks like we got about 10 minutes, right?
Because we
Okay.
intend to.
Okay, then we can make that. We can make 10 minutes.
And maybe we should just pause here. We'll talk a little bit more about the Blue Man Group, but just pause. Any questions or comments up until this point? Thoughts that you have along the way?
Just one question. When you're doing like your planning and all that fun stuff for your business, everybody always focuses on like the year from now, the 3 months from now, the next quarter. Why don't they do like 100-year plans and all
Good
that
question.
stuff the way out? Because like Toyota has a 100-year plan. but nobody else really does.
Comments? I mean,
Well, they
The
didn't
other
have
problem,
$100.
we also have $100
Well, they didn't
million
at first, but they knew where they were going, 100 years from now.
it's a pretty remarkable
They didn't do that
thing.
the first year.
Yeah, that's
No,
right.
but
You have
They
success.
did that as time went on.
But you should know where you're gonna be in the next 50, 20, or at least some general idea.
Well, you need to really focus on the short term until you're solid, and then you can raise your horizon a little bit longer, but make sure you're solid first. Yeah.
I know where I'll be in 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
Well, I
growing
have a
lilies.
question that kind of follows up on that, and I think a lot of people struggle with, how much should you put on paper for business plan? How much should be in your mind? And how do you allocate those resources properly? Because like you say, I mean, we hear about the lean startup and rapid prototyping, all these things about getting going, but how to allocate those resources and time on paper. Especially, right, a great business plan is good till it hits your next client, right? You hear stuff like that. How much time should you put in that on paper? What should be on paper?
That's a good question. Matt, I'll take a shot and then maybe Kevin
Yeah,
can.
go ahead.
I think it's gonna be different for each one of you. How many of you set goals personally? And, okay, keep your hands up. How many of you always, pretty much always write them down? Okay, so most of you, and you guys count yourselves as goal setters. Okay, so I think individually, I think some of you are more inclined, I'm that way. Like I write stuff down, sometimes it's on napkins, but I find them in my closet, I'm like, wow, I did that, I accomplished it. There's magic in writing this down, right? But you can go overboard, you can go underboard, and I don't know what to tell you. Whatever I told you, some of you are going to go overboard, some of you are going to go underboard. So I think the key is to understand the principle. You want to stay focused, you want to be able to allocate resources, you don't want to get distracted, you don't want to get drawn off. So when you find yourself having this problem, you may go back and say, I need to get my plan down. I'm just scattered.
The other problem with not having it written down is if it's in your head, you're the only one that knows it. You can't lead a team with what's in your head. They have to know the plan, and you do that by writing it down. That's how you do it.
So you got to have at least that much too. Any other
Right.
thoughts on that? It's a hard line
Yeah,
to
great.
find.
Yeah,
Okay.
not only that, but then giving it to your people and having that vision carried out.
Yeah,
But obviously,
you have to
from-
communicate.
From a CPA point of view, I mean, if somebody brings you a business plan, you want to see numbers, and where stuff is going to go. How do you recommend startups doing that, or?
Actually, what we do isn't about the numbers, it's about the assumption.
Yeah.
Because we challenge people to look at their assumption. Computer is the best number calculator you can get. There's nobody in this room that can match the computer. But the assumptions are what are important, and that's what we do, is teach people to make the right decisions, the right conclusions, to make we challenge your assumption. And once we get the best assumption, then the numbers will calculate out, we can make that work. So that's what it's about, not about the number. In fact, tell you a secret. Go in for a job interview, those that are majoring in accounting, and you sit down for the interview, and the interviewer says, so why'd you pick accounting? And you say, oh, because I just love numbers. For me, the interview is over. I'm just waiting for the clock to run so I can get you out of my office. I don't care about number crunchers. The computer's the best number cruncher we've got. We want people who can think, who can solve problems, who challenge the assumptions, then we'll figure the numbers out. But just because you like numbers, we don't need them. Don't need them. So,
Could you give an example of an assumption that you would challenge in a business, in an accounting setting?
I've seen people bring in business plans that show that they're going to double sales every month. Double them every month.
Because it's an easy formula to put in
You
Excel.
know, the world in 8 years. Yeah. And they have that going out 5 years, and they're showing you this spectacular, and so, and that's a simple one, but that's a good assumption. So, well, we got about 5 minutes
What do you
left.
think? Should we push through this or take a couple more questions?
Maybe we'll take some questions.
Yeah.
Although,
I think that's,
but we do want to show them the two different models.
okay.
I
Well, let's
think-
take one more question, then we're going to
We'll close
try
with
to wow
the
you
two,
with.
the two different models.
So like you said, they'll make those assumptions of their sales doubling every month and whatnot. How do you formulate a right assumption? How do you have any idea what you're gonna do next month? You don't know, really. So how are you gonna make a right assumption? On your guys' point of view, when somebody says an assumption and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, how do you guys formulate that that's the right assumption?
Okay, knowledge is power. You're going to sell cell phone covers. What's your potential market?
Are you asking?
Yeah. How many cell phones are there? How many cell phones are there?
A lot.
More than people.
How many models are there?
There's a ton.
What's it cost to make the cell phone cover you're talking about? You know, we start asking these questions, and if you don't know how many cell phone numbers there are and how many there are in Utah, how many there are online, how many contacts you get online, those kind of
So
things.
you're saying find all the numbers.
Right.
Find all the people that are going to be targeted.
Right.
And go from
What's going to be your
there. How are you going to reach them?
what's going to be your fulfillment cost? Sell a cell phone cover, what's it going to cost for you to ship that cell phone cover? What's that cost? You know, these assumptions, you say, well, I can do it for $2. Well, okay, how do you know that? So it's doing your homework, answering the question,
So you
getting
want
good
less
information.
assumption and more facts.
Filling all the gaps you can. In the business world, it's called due diligence. Yep. But you can't be paralyzed, analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis, yeah.
You gotta-
Okay, that's
you
our
gotta get on
worst
the street
failure.
and
As
test it.
accountants, that's our worst failure, is we pick things to death.
It's so much fun. Yeah, come sometime we'll do it. Hunker around a
Well, anyway,
spreadsheet.
we are out of time. So we're just going to say, this is a great example. This overnight success took 10 years, really. 10 years. They learned how to duplicate themselves. You know any of these guys? What are their names?
Blue, dark blue, and darkest blue.
How many blue men are there?
Let me give you just a couple facts. They went from, the first 3 years, they didn't have an understudy. And the understudy had never practiced. One of them cut their hands on a router, and the understudy went on, and it worked.
Nobody knew.
They still weren't thinking about a
Nobody
process
knew.
model. A performer came up to them and said, you guys are brilliant, you can paint your faces. Like, you can do what me and my sidekick can never do. So now there are, last time I checked, 70 performers. They've got a lady, they've got an African-American with over 500 employees. Their company can do 3,000 shows a year. Simultaneously, they can be in 8 cities and be on tour. Kind of an exciting prospect.
They made themselves interchangeable. It wasn't all in their heads. See, that's why you have to have stuff written down. Okay, this is a great model to emulate. There's another model. There's another
Does
model.
anyone remember Siegfried and Roy?
Siegfried and Roy.
So in 2001, Roy got drug off stage by his neck by the tiger. Were you there?
Yeah.
Oh, we
Wow.
got
I
tough.
actually cut that line that did it.
Did you think it was part of the act, or did you know it was? Did you think it was part of the act, or did you know it was a
Oh, I had no
problem?
idea. I was just a little
Oh, okay.
quiet.
So,
Well, okay.
So let me give you stats on these guys. In 2001, they signed a lifetime contract with the Mirage. They appeared in 6,000 shows together. It was 2003. Roy was injured. Their show was over because they had to be on stage together.
Well, didn't they try to replace Roy?
They did try to replace Roy, but I don't think it worked. It's so disturbing.
That's,
Sorry, we had to ruin your
That looks
day
like
with
the
that
one that-
picture. We had to get at least this far in the
That's kind of
presentation.
disturbing. We'll go back to Blue Man Group. Anyway, so, all right, we appreciate having the time with you. You can go on our website, mycpa.com, get some information. We just had the first annual HCS Mini Masters Tour and Mini Golf Course in our office. We have interviews with Lavelle Edwards and Dan Forsman and stuff. You get a kick out of those, check it out. But good luck, entrepreneurs. That's what keeps bread and butter on my table. We love you guys, and thank you for letting us come.